So usually when you tune into a Friday Night Wrestling show, there's this very distinct, comfortable rhythm to it,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a formula.
Right, a formula. You expect a promo to open the show, maybe some, back and forth athletic contests, and then a surprise roll-up pinfall to send the live crowd home happy.
Yeah, it's designed to entertain you without necessarily shaking the foundation of the industry every single week.
Exactly. But if you look at the July 10, 2026 edition of WWE SmackDown, that standard, predictable structure just completely vanishes.
It was chaotic, just completely off the rails.
I mean, the show we're looking at today for this deep dive, it felt like a vehicle accelerating to 100 miles an hour, heading directly toward a cliff.
That's actually a great way to put it. The landscape of WWE right now is shifting so aggressively as they build towards SummerSlam in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and we are unpacking a 2-hour television broadcast that was defined by brutal backstage attacks, highly polarized crowd reactions, and, massive main event implications.
And this specific episode really serves as this incredibly layered case study for modern wrestling booking.
Right, which brings us to our mission for you, the listener, today. We're going to distill exactly what happened in Oklahoma City, separating the essential, long-term storylines from the episodic filler.
Because there was a lot to sift through.
So much. And we're going to analyze not just what happened in the ring, but how the live audience and the critics reacted to it. Because, wow, there was a massive disconnect between those two groups.
Oh, massive. It's almost like they were watching two completely different shows.
Totally. So consider this your masterclass in modern wrestling booking. We're examining where the creative decisions hit their target flawlessly and where they left viewers just completely bewildered.
And to map out that dichotomy, I think the most logical starting point is the very top of the broadcast.
Right. Let's start right at the beginning.
Because that opening segment, it successfully set the tone and the marquee main event for SummerSlam. But the mechanics of how they actually got there had television critics heavily scrutinizing the execution.
Let's break down the timeline for you. So, General Manager Nick Aldis opens the show to introduce the brand new, undisputed WWE champion, CM Punk.
Right, and just for context here, Punk captured that title from Sami Zayn on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, which was only 9 days after Zayn won it at Night of Champions.
Just a completely chaotic title picture right now.
Right. So Punk comes to the ring, he's holding the gold, and he just begins this lengthy, rambling monologue listing off a myriad of potential challenges.
You're dropping names left and right.
Yeah, he's name-dropping Royce Keys, Trick Williams, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and then finally Cody Rhodes interrupts.
The inevitable interruption.
Exactly. They exchange pleasantries, they agree to a SummerSlam title match, and Aldis makes it official.
And look, the intention behind that booking is obvious, right? You have two of the most recognizable stars in the entire industry, and you're locking in a highly anticipated contest for your second biggest show of the year.
Sure, the intention is clear, but man, the execution felt agonizing. Watching this segment unfold was, it was like being trapped in an unskippable 20-minute video game cutscene.
That is exactly what it felt like.
Right, like everyone watching at home and everyone sitting in the Paycom Center, we all knew the ultimate destination was Punk versus Cody at SummerSlam.
It was the worst-kept secret in wrestling.
But we were forced to sit through all of this heavy-handed, meandering exposition anyway. I mean, the pacing dragged so severely that when the match was finally made official, the arena was noticeably quiet.
Yeah, the live crowd was just dead.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing there is the tension between live event pacing and premium live event marketing.
Explain that a bit for the listener.
Well, WWE willingly sacrificed the momentum of their weekly television show simply to guarantee they could broadcast a massive marquee graphic for SummerSlam ticket sales.
Ah, right. It's all about that graphic.
Exactly. Dragging a foregone conclusion out for 20 minutes without any physical conflict or genuine surprise, it inherently causes a live crowd to check out. The audience is waiting for an inciting incident that just never arrives.
Which brings up a glaring omission here. The inciting incident should have been the man who actually lost the championship 4 days prior.
Sami Zayn.
Yes, Sami Zayn was entirely absent from the live broadcast. They played a backstage video from Monday, and the commentators vaguely referenced some phone call he made to the general manager.
Yeah, a phone call.
Right.
Like, you lose the top prize in the company after a 9-day reign, and you do not show right up to SmackDown demanding a rematch.
It visually communicates that the character simply doesn't care about the championship.
Totally. It makes no sense.
And that absence creates a narrative vacuum, which is incredibly dangerous for audience investment.
But WWE did kind of try to fix it, right? They did. They utilized a very specific mechanism to address that vacuum later in the broadcast. Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano confronted CM Punk backstage,
Right, yeah.
and LeRae actively defended Sami Zayn's short title run. She basically functioned as the designated voice of the audience, vocalizing the exact frustrations viewers at home were feeling regarding Zayn just being breathed aside.
And Punk's response was so brutal, he looked right at LeRae and Gargano and told them to drop their ridiculous bit and get back in the ring.
Which is meta booking at its absolute
It
finest.
really was.
Right. LeRae addressed the narrative flaw of Zayn's absence, while Punk addressed a very real criticism fans have had regarding LeRae and Gargano.
Because fans have been complaining about their current storyline.
Exactly. Critics have noted that their immense in-ring talent is currently being squandered on these quirky, comedic backstage vignettes. Punk calling them out on it validated the critics' frustrations, basically blending the scripted storyline with actual viewer sentiment.
It was a great moment. But let's pivot to the man who actually booked that Punk and Cody main event in the first place, General Manager Nick Aldis.
Oh boy.
Because Aldis's managerial strategy on this episode really warrants some serious scrutiny. So Aldis was just reinstated from a suspension following an altercation with Gunther in Saudi Arabia.
Right. At Night of Champions.
Yeah. He's back in power. He sets the SummerSlam main event, and then Gunther immediately marches into his office demanding to be added to that match.
And we really have to evaluate the dynamic of authority in this specific scenario. Aldis is dealing with a performer whose entire character is built on historic, unyielding ruthlessness.
Gunther is terrifying.
He is. He is not someone you play games with.
Yet Aldis decides to play hardball anyway. He deliberately uses Gunther's own words against him, denying the SummerSlam request.
Such a risky move.
Instead, Aldis books a massive tag team match for Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden on July 18th.
Right.
It's going to be Gunther and Sami Zayn teaming up against CM Punk and Cody Rhodes.
Now, by booking that, Aldis secures a blockbuster attraction for Madison Square Garden. But, I mean, he does so by directly insulting the specific demands of his most dangerous employee.
And the consequences were instantaneous. Gunther attacks Aldis, treating the surrounding security guards like they don't even exist.
He just walked right through them.
He locks the general manager in multiple sleeper holds until Aldis is completely unresponsive. And then the SmackDown broadcast just abruptly cuts to black.
Which is such a rare production move for WWE.
It is. And WWE released digital footage later showing Cody Rhodes sprinting to the ring to make the save, screaming for the referee to ring the bell right then and there.
And Gunther just simply looks at him and walks away.
I struggle to see the logic in Aldis's approach here. Like, deliberately antagonizing a volatile asset seems like terrible management, right?
Oh, it is objectively terrible corporate management.
Right.
But it is deeply compelling television because it perfectly highlights the psychology of Gunther's character.
How so?
Well, Gunther is not a chaotic brawler. When Cody Rhodes rushes the ring demanding an impromptu fight, Gunther retreats. He doesn't want a sloppy, unsanctioned scrap in street clothes.
Right, that's beneath him.
Exactly. His character desires clinical, premeditated destruction on a sanctioned stage. He neutralized the authority figure who denied him, and he did it with absolute precision.
I mean, he literally choked the boss unconscious.
Which forces us to look at the long-term trajectory of this story. Critics are widely speculating that this violent escalation is laying the groundwork for an actual match between Gunther and Nick Aldis at SummerSlam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because unlike a traditional corporate executive, Aldis has legitimate in-ring pedigree. The physical confrontation here actually justifies him stepping out from behind the desk and returning to active competition.
That would be huge. But transitioning from one calculated attack to an entirely unexpected disruption, we need to examine the United States Championship picture.
This was wild.
We had a non-title match scheduled between the champion Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. And as a quick visual aside, Trick was gifted a custom fur U.S. title by the rapper Lil Yachty earlier in the night.
Which was a great visual, giving this matchup a huge celebratory feel.
Totally. But before a winner can be decided, a ghost from WWE's past violently derails the entire segment.
A return completely absent from any insider reports or rumors, which never happens anymore.
Never. Baron Corbin slides into the ring. He hasn't been seen in a WWE ring since his release in November of 2024.
Almost 2 full years.
Right. He lays out both Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes with his signature maneuver, the End of Days, forcing the referee to throw the match out.
The impact was immediate.
The live crowd inside the Paycom Center just erupted. We are talking massive, expletive-filled chants echoing through the arena. The physical building was shaking, but the reaction from the internet was incredibly toxic.
Oh, the vitriol online was immediate and overwhelming.
Yeah. Social media timelines were flooded with posts calling Corbin a washed bum. One highly circulated post claimed his return pops louder than his aging knees, while others accused the creative team of taking the company backwards a full decade by rehiring him.
Just a classic internet wrestling community reaction.
The contrast is staggering. It reminds me of the opening weekend for a massive, explosion-filled blockbuster movie. You know, the audience sitting in the theater is throwing their popcorn and cheering at the spectacle, while the film critics on Twitter are furiously typing out essays about the plot holes before the end credits even finish rolling.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the permanent disconnect between the IWC, the internet wrestling community, and the casual ticket-buying live audience.
Right, they want completely different things.
Exactly. The IWC is a highly vocal, analytical segment of the fan base that heavily prioritizes what is known as work rate.
Okay, for the listener, what exactly does work rate mean in this context?
They value intricate, athletic, sustained technical wrestling above almost everything else. So from their perspective, a veteran like Corbin is occupying a television spot that could be utilized by a younger, faster, independent wrestling standout.
But the live crowd clearly operates on a completely different metric, right? Because they loved it.
Right. Live wrestling relies heavily on visceral, immediate impact. The structural mechanics of a wrestling roster dictate that you cannot simply populate your entire show with high flyers.
You need some variety.
You have to have it. The United States title picture currently features incredibly fast, dynamic stars like Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. But for their offense to look visually impressive, to create that classic David versus Goliath dynamic, they require a reliable, explosive big man to act as a fulcrum.
And Corbin fits that perfectly.
He executes his maneuvers safely, his end-of-days finisher is heavily protected, and he instantly provides a massive physical wall for the champions to overcome.
Yeah.
He is a structural necessity.
Right, you cannot have an underdog story without a giant. But, looking at how WWE utilizes their larger athletes brings us to a baffling contradiction on this very same episode.
The booking inconsistencies were definitely glaring.
Yeah. While Corbin receives this dominant, show-stopping return, the creative team seems entirely lost on how to handle another massive powerhouse on the roster, Royce Keys.
Formerly known as Powerhouse Hobbs, right before his debut at the 2026 Royal Rumble.
Keys is a physical specimen. I mean, he's presented as this terrifying, protected force of nature. But on this episode, Keys interrupts a segment featuring the Bloodline faction, specifically Jimmy Uso and Jacob Fatu.
Right.
This confrontation leads to an impromptu singles match between Keys and Jimmy Uso, and the actual match completely falls apart into structural chaos.
It becomes a convoluted mess that actively damages the competitors involved.
Solo Sikoa runs down to the ring to interfere, trying to cost Jimmy Uso the match. Then Jacob Fatu emerges to brawl with Solo.
Just bodies everywhere.
Right. And amidst all of this dripping soap opera family drama happening on the floor, Jimmy Uso manages to hit a spear inside the ring and pins Royce Keys.
Clean in the middle of the ring.
Keys actually takes the loss. Afterward, Fatu lays out Solo as a final warning to rejoin the family. The actual bell-to-bell wrestling match was a complete afterthought.
Completely ignored.
Why would you hire a monster, spend months building up his aura, just to use him as a temporary prop in someone else's family dispute? It's the equivalent of buying a military tank and using it to commute to the grocery store.
I love that.
The asset is entirely wasted on the task.
And wrestling journalists were highly critical of this exact sequence. Because building a monster archetype requires a very specific narrative diet.
What do you mean by that?
They need what the industry calls a clean finish, winning a match decisively without any outside interference, cheating, or distractions. When a powerhouse relies on or falls victim to convoluted distractions, their aura of invincibility shatters.
It just pops the balloon.
Exactly. Royce Keys losing to Jimmy Uso solely to facilitate a distraction for the Bloodline story completely undermines his value.
And this was not the only match on the broadcast that sacrificed logic for the sake of a larger storyline, was it?
No, we saw a similar issue with Finn Balor defeating Tama Tonga earlier in the night.
Oh, right.
Tama Tonga had just ruthlessly attacked Balor the previous week. Structurally, Tama desperately needed what we call a heel victory, a win for the villain to establish himself as a credible, ongoing threat to his rivals.
But instead, Balor defeats him.
Right. And if we synthesize these two matches, it highlights a growing problematic trend in modern booking. Long-term storytelling can inadvertently suffocate the mid-card roster.
Because the larger narrative acts like a black hole pulling everything else into its orbit.
Precisely. The Bloodline saga is a massive, multi-year, industry-defining narrative. But when every single match involving a tangential character becomes a mere vehicle for outside interference to advance that one specific family drama, the actual athletes in the ring lose their credibility.
They just become props.
The matches cease to be athletic contests and transform into background noise for a soap opera. Performers like Royce Keys just become collateral damage.
Yeah, the results of the matches have to matter to the characters involved. Otherwise, why should you, the viewer, even care?
Exactly.
And if we want to examine a match ending that had profound, deliberate consequences, we really have to look at the women's division on this episode.
This is tough to watch.
The theme of calculated, statement-making violence that we saw with Gunther choking out the general manager carried over here, culminating in, honestly, the most wince-inducing visual of the entire broadcast.
The post-match segment was incredibly uncomfortable to witness.
Yeah. So the match itself featured Jade Cargill, accompanied by Michin and B-Fab, going one-on-one with Alexa Bliss, who had Charlotte Flair in her corner.
And Bliss was highly competitive early on. She utilized her speed and even attempted her signature Sister Abigail maneuver.
But of course, outside distractions from Michin and B-Fab allowed Jade to land a massive pump kick, follow it up with her jaded finisher, and secure the victory.
Now, the match result firmly established Cargill's dominance, but the physical contest was entirely eclipsed by the aftermath.
Because the victory was not the objective, it was just the setup. Michin and B-Fab physically restrained Charlotte Flair, forcing her to watch what happens next.
This is where it gets brutal.
Jade Cargill grabs Alexa Bliss's arm, places it deliberately inside a steel folding chair, visibly hyperextends the elbow joint, and slams the chair violently down onto the canvas.
Awful.
Just awful.
Bliss is left screaming in agony as medical personnel rush the ring, eventually hurrying her to the backstage area. What is striking here is the total lack of emotion from Cargill.
She was ice cold.
Right, this was not a crime of passion committed in the heat of a brawl. It was a calculated, methodical mob hit. Jade stared directly into Charlotte Flair's eyes while breaking her ally's arm. It was a message sent with absolute precision. And we really have to look at the narrative utility of this specific type of violence. On a practical, logistical level, this brutal angle effectively writes Alexa Bliss off television for the foreseeable future, granting her time to heal or take a scheduled leave of absence.
Right, which happens a lot in wrestling.
It does. But creatively, it drastically alters the emotional stakes of the storyline.
It changes the entire motivation for the protagonist.
It instantly escalates the tension for the looming showdown between Jade Cargill and Charlotte Flair. Charlotte is no longer just fighting for professional pride or a spot in the championship rankings.
She wants revenge.
Exactly. She is now fighting for vengeance against a faction that systematically crippled her friend. Furthermore, it elevates Jade Cargill. She transitions from being merely a physically dominant athlete to a ruthless, strategic villain willing to end careers to prove a point.
It is incredibly effective television that completely resets the board. So what does this all mean for you, the viewer, as we pull all these disparate threads together? We just walked through an episode of SmackDown that achieved a massive amount of narrative table setting.
The structural pieces for the rest of the summer are officially locked into place.
We have the SummerSlam main event solidified with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. We have Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden stacked with a chaotic tag team showcase.
And the United States title picture just had a grenade thrown into the middle of it with the unexpected return of Baron Corbin.
Right. And both the Bloodline and the women's divisions are drowning in brutal, escalating, deeply personal violence.
The entire 2 hours were defined by high stakes, physical consequences, and a frantic sense of urgency.
But before we wrap this deep dive up, I want to leave you with a broader piece of context to consider something happening behind the curtain that explains why this particular episode felt so relentlessly chaotic, violent, and just desperate for your attention.
We have to pull back and look at the corporate business side of the wrestling industry.
SummerSlam 2026 is not just another premium live event on the calendar. It marks the very first time a WWE premium live event will stream live on ESPN in the United States, following the expiration of their long-standing deal with Peacock.
That is a massive shift. WWE is stepping onto a brand new, massively scrutinized sports broadcasting platform.
And the corporate pressure to deliver undeniable viewership numbers for this new partner is higher than it has been in over a decade.
They need to prove they are worth the investment.
Exactly. So challenge yourself to view this episode through that specific lens. Think about the highly polarized, cliffhanger-heavy, hyper-violent booking we just witnessed.
The sleeper holds, the arm breaking.
Right. Gunther choking a corporate executive unconscious, Jacob Fatu destroying his own family members, Jade Cargill methodically shattering an arm with a steel chair. How much of this is simply organic creative storytelling, and how much of it is a calculated, engineered strategy by WWE to guarantee that fans absolutely have to tune in?
Are they intentionally utilizing extreme shock value to impress the executives at ESPN and prove their market dominance?
When the corporate financial stakes are at their absolute peak, the on-screen television product almost always reflects that underlying desperation for engagement and attention.
It always bleeds through to the screen.
It really does. So keep that corporate pressure in mind the next time the screen suddenly cuts to black in the middle of a broadcast. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chaotic road to SummerSlam.
Keep questioning the narratives unfolding on your screens, whether they're being written in the center of the ring or in a boardroom.
We will catch you next time.